Hey everyone, Derek again from the Mock Family Resource Center in Fitchburg. This video is going to be the instructional video on how to do some ice fishing. So you're going to see me go out and check the ice. You're also going to see me show you the type of bait that I use, what bait works best for specific species, how to set up your trap to get it in the water to get ready to fish, how to hook the fish and reel them in. So hopefully this is helpful to you if you're someone who's looking to get out there and start a new hobby, a new sport, and hit the ice and start fishing. The pond that I fish on now has gotten 6 to 7 inches of ice covering it, so that's plenty safe for ice fishing. Some of the other ponds in the area still aren't where they need to be. It's been pretty warm. Luckily, the nights have been cold up where I live, so that's helped the ice lock up a little bit. But just be careful, do your research, make sure you check your ice before you decide to go out and fish. You can look things up online. There's Facebook groups dedicated to ice fishing that post what ice is safe and things like that. So just do some research before you get out there. But if you find a pond near you that looks good and is fishable, hopefully, like I said, this helps you out and you can get out there and start doing it. Alright, so these are shiners. This is mainly what I use to fish with. We call them shiners. They're also called minnows. The size of the bait you're using is going to depend on the size of the fish you're trying to catch. So I have medium shiners because I know in here there's big bass and they like bigger bait. For pike, you can get even bigger than that. They sell suckers. They also sell pike minnows that are bigger because pike tend to get really big. What I also have in here are rosy reds. These you can actually get at your local pet stores. Those are good for trout. Trout like smaller bait. You're going to use a smaller hook. So if you can get a good size rosy red, like 2 to 3 inches, the trout love those. So those are good for trout. But and we got some larger bait in here too. Sometimes when you go to the bait shop, they're going to have a mix of medium and what they call heavy or large minnows. So sometimes you're going to get a mixed bag. They also will do it for medium and small. They'll bundle those together. So sometimes you might have a mix, which isn't bad. Big fish will still go after smaller bait, but they're less likely to do it. But if you're looking to catch perch or something smaller, those little guys are good to have and throw a couple out if you're looking to catch something to fry up when you get home. So when you're walking out on the ice, every few feet or so, you want to take your spud bar, give it a few hits. As long as it doesn't go through in like 4 or 5 hits, you should be good. The ice should be all set. But just do it the whole way out, just to be safe. All right, so as you can see, we've drilled holes. In Massachusetts, you're allowed 5 traps in the ice at one time. So that includes your traps and your jig sticks. So any combination of 5 you're allowed to have. And I'll show you right here. you can see we're at about 6 inches of ice. So we're good. I drilled holes and checked the whole way down, and I feel safe. The ice is sturdy. I'm also pretty close to shore because I know it's kind of shallow over here. There's also big fish over here, but I know it's kind of more shallow over here, so if I do go through, I'm not going to be in very deep water. It's probably about 4 feet deep over here. Okay, so now that the hole's drilled, we're going to scoop the ice out that's in there using your ladle or scoop, whatever you want to call it. You can also check the depth of the ice with it, and we're over 7 inches, so we're good. Now, you want to take your trap, you're going to open it up, you're going to tighten this down so that it stays, and then you want to pull your flag out until it hits there. Next, take your hook out. Now you're going to want to sound the hole, see how deep the water is. So you take your sounder, you clip it on there like that. Then you drop it down the hole. Okay, the line is slack now. So now you want to mark that. You want to mark that the top of the ice is right here. And you want this button about a foot or two below the top of the ice. Bring your hook up. Put the rest of the line back on. Your spool, like so. Take your sounder off. Grab yourself a shiner out of your shiner bucket. And when you hook the shiner, I hook mine right here, just behind the fin, not too deep in their back. You don't want to hit their spine. Pop it in the hole. Put your trap down. Take your flag. Put your flag right here. And now you're fishing. So the bait you use for trout fishing can be a little different than you'd use for like bass or perch or pike. Trout, you can use shiners or minnows. You're just going to want to use smaller ones unless you know that the lake you're fishing in has a population of large fish like lake trout or landlocked salmon, or sometimes even big rainbows or brown trout. If you know that they're in there, you can use bigger bait, but trout's mouths don't open as big or as wide as like a pike or a pickerel or a bass. So you're going to want to use smaller shiners. So small size shiner is usually fine, or those rosy reds are good too. Trout love those. But you can also use trout worms. Trout will go after worms, especially if you're fishing a sandy bottom. You can use some worms and the trout will go after those. Sometimes you can use some artificial baits. So this power bait is called a rat tail. They come in a bunch of different colors. It's just called a rat tail because it looks like one. It's a ball with a little tail on the end. They also sell power bait. It's either in dough form or little power eggs, they call them. They're just little balls that are chained together. You can use those too, but the thing about those is they float. So if you're using those, you're going to want to make sure you have a weight on your line to weigh it down so that the bait isn't floating and just sitting on the bottom of the ice, because no fish is going to come take it if it's right on the bottom of the ice. So this is what they look like. This is a rat tail. So there's a couple different ways you can weight it down. What I'll do is I'll find where my leader ties to my tip-up line, and I'll put some split shot there. That way the split shot's going to sink to the bottom, it's going to hit the bottom, and then your leader line is going to float up. So you'll drop it down, let it hit bottom, and your leader line's going to float up. Now this is fine in shallow ponds where you know it's not very deep, but trout tend to skim the bottom of the ice and skirt the edge of a pond. Sometimes they'll be in deep pockets where there's drop-offs. In deeper lakes, they'll be there, but usually in the winter, they like to skirt around the edge and try to find bait, and they like sandy areas. So what we usually do with trout is, instead of sounding our hole, we'll put our bait about a foot or a foot and a half below the ice, because the trout tend to be closer to the ice, the bottom of the ice, and like I said, they like to skirt the edges, so you're probably going to be fishing more shallow for trout, unless, like I said, you know the body of water you're fishing and it's deeper and there's pockets and drop-offs where you know there's going to be bigger trout. But if you're fishing one of these shallow, like 4 to 6 feet deep lakes where you know there's some trout and you know there's a sandy bottom like a beach or something, you're going to want to fish about a foot or a foot and a half below the bottom of the ice. So the way I do that is I put a weight right on the hook. That way it's going to pull your weight down, so you don't have to worry about letting it hit bottom. It's just going to dangle like it normally does. So with trout worms, you don't have to worry about weighing them down. You just put them on the hook and put them down. There's lots of other different baits you can use, like salmon eggs. You can use mealworms. We've caught them on mealworms before. So it's all about finding what the trout in that body of water are looking for and using that bait to fish for them. Alright, so we got a flag. So what you want to do is pull your trap out. You see the lines moving. Give it a tug and then pull it in. Oh, I think we lost it. Oh, maybe not. This took a lot of line. Let's see what we got. That's a nice brown trout. When you're jigging, there's several different things you can use on the end of your line. They're obviously called jigs because you're jigging with them. Some of them look like this. This is supposed to look like a minnow with a hook on the end. You have other ones that look like this. There's lures rather than jigs that look like this. And then there's also any variety of these As you can see, they all look different. You might have to switch them a lot depending on what the fish want to eat that day. Different colors, different sizes, but these are all jigs. And on your jigs, you're going to want to put either, these are called mealies, mealworms, spikes, maggots. Different people call them different things. You can get these at the pet store too, but most of your bait shops or even gas stations will have these. Or you can use trout worms, night crawlers, any form of worm, just basic worm, and have luck. You can have luck with just a jig, but a lot of times the fish won't go after just a jig. You're going to want to at least put either a spike or a sectional worm on there, just so there's a little bit of live bait on there. It gives it a certain smell, and will attract them in. So those are the different kinds of jigs you can use. Like I said, you might have to switch it up, find out what they like, what the fish are going after, and once you do that, it's easy to reel a lot of fish in, especially small panfish. The jig bite for panfish is usually pretty good if you can find them. So now we're going to do what's called jigging. You have your ice rod, and what we have on here is a jig with some worms on it, and then a bobber. So you're going to drop that down the hole. You're going to drop it all the way to the bottom, find out where bottom is, and then reel up about a foot off the bottom. And then you just sit and you bounce it up and down like this. And then if there's any panfish or maybe bass in the area, hopefully they're hungry and they'll come by and they'll grab it. You can also use one of these rod holders and do what they call dead sticking. That just means you don't jig the rod, you just leave it on there and hope something comes by and grabs it. But this is also another way that you can fish through the ice, is with a jig stick. Now with a jig stick, if a fish does grab it, you'll see your line bend like that, and then you're just going to want to pull up like you would if you were fishing open water. You just pull up, set the hook, and then reel it in. Another thing I like to use, especially for trout and perch, is a jaw jacker. So this you use with a jig rod. I'll show you how it sets up. These legs come out. This you set to how long your rod is. So mine's set mine to a 3. And then this is the pitch of the rod. I always put mine on the 3rd. Then clip that in there. So this is what it looks like when it's sitting on the ice. So then what you do is take your jig rod, you put it in here like this, then you put like a minnow or a worm or whatever bait you want on your hook, and then put your hook in the water. Then there's this little tab right here. This tab goes right here. This folds over like that. This piece comes up and over that and holds it down right here. And then you put your line through the end right here. So then your line will be in the water. Then what happens is when a fish takes your bait, it'll pull down on the line. And as you can see, it trips this. So I'll show you that again. Hook that up. Then when fish takes your bait and it sets the hook for you, then you come over, you pick your rod up, and then you reel it in and you fight the fish that way. These are really fun for trout. I've caught brook trout on these, and it's really fun. It's like having another tip up out there, only instead of pulling the line in with your hand, you get to reel it in with your rod. So it's fun. They're expensive, but it is another tool you can use when you're out there fishing. I hope this video was helpful and informative for you. Ice fishing's not for everybody. Some people don't like being out in the cold. Some people just prefer other winter sports, but I feel like getting involved in the outdoors and being outside and in the fresh air, no matter how you do it, is always a good thing. Helps us with our mental health. It helps us stay connected to the earth and appreciate nature and the things that are around us. So if this is something that you decide to take on, good for you. It's fun. If there's any other outdoorsy type things or any other how-to videos in general that you want me to make videos of, leave it in the comments, and just let me know. I'm willing to make, any video as long as I'm able to that people want me to make. So again, like, share, subscribe to this channel, let people know about it. Again, if you want any other topics, just leave them in the comments section down below. And until next time, be safe, be healthy, and be kind to one another.